Okay, now we're actually ready to go. This is how we know she's an idiot. Hello and welcome to this video. I finished reading a book. It was the first book from my blind date with a book February challenge that I gave myself, The Predator, which is a mafia romance. I opened the book and just started reading it. So I've never read the synopsis on the back, but I'm gonna read it for you now. This will be my first time reading it too. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object in the field of death? In the dark underbelly of the mob, Tristan Kane has been an anomaly. As the only non-blooded member in the high circle of the Tenebrae outfit, he is an enigma to all. His skills unparalleled, his morality questionable, and his motives unknown. He is lethal and he knows it. As does Miranda Vitalio, the genius extraordinaire daughter of the... I'm sorry. Genius extraordinaire daughter of the rival family. What Kane does with weapons, Miranda does with computers. When a 20-year-old mystery resurfaces, Miranda infiltrates Kane's house, intent on killing him. Unaware of a tie that binds them together, hate, heat, and history clash together with unexpected sparks. But something bigger, something worse is happening in their world. And despite their animosity, only they can fight it down. Wow. Okay, so that was my first time reading that synopsis back, and wow, I've got a few things to say about that. I finished reading the book. It took me about 2 days to finish it, and I did tab and annotate a little bit in it. Towards the end, I was annotating less because it was just kind of like, I want to get through this, you know? I did keep track of a couple very important things, though. At about chapter 6 or 7, I noticed this weird pattern of things being said. So I decided that at the end of every chapter, I would tally up how often the author used these words. So the things that I kept track of, anytime they talk about the main character's heart, I tally. Anytime they talk about the love interest's, his eyes, I tally. Anytime they talk about the main character's blood rushing, or hot blood, her blood heating up, I tally. And anytime they mention the love interest's muscles, I tallied. So I kept track of that. Be aware that it might not be 100% accurate. There might have been some times where I tallied when I shouldn't have, or times when I should have tallied and I missed it. In the entire book, there's only one chapter that I did not tally at all, and it's because it was a flashback chapter that was in the male love interest's perspective instead of the main characters. So I decided not to do any tallies for that one. So there are mentions, though, I will say, in that chapter of his eyes, his muscles, and I think that's it of those things, because she was 2 years old in this flashback and he was 8. But they do talk about this 8-year-old's muscles. So, you know, take that what you will. The grand total of those tallies is kind of surprising, to be honest. They mention her heart 206 times in this book. It's not a very thick book. It's 303 pages, and they mention her heart 206 times. They mention his eyes also 206 times. I know. You might be thinking, that's crazy. That's so weird. How did it end up that way? I don't know. And then in the last couple chapters, it was a lot of her heart. For example, the very last chapter, here's my tallies for that. The very last chapter mentions her heart, 26 times. 5, 10, 15, 20, 5, 6. 26 times. That's a record. Like, they don't mention his eyes that many times in a single chapter. They get close. They definitely get close. But 26 times. And that, I thought, wow. Well, her heart's obviously got to win out, right? In this race that I've just put these words into. No, they tied. So it was a losing bet. I think I lost the moment I started reading, honestly. Anyway, they mention her hot blood, or her blood rushing, about 44 times. Not nearly as dramatic, but still a lot. Especially in the earlier chapters, they mention it a lot. And then they mention his muscles 53 times. Again, not nearly as dramatic, but enough that there was some sort of pattern there. The main thing that I wanted to talk about with this back synopsis part. First of all, the main character, her name is Morena. Morena. And I knew, before I started reading it, before I knew what her name was, I knew that with this kind of book, the main character was going to be an idiot. I knew that. I just knew in the very core of my being that this was that kind of book. So for her name to sound similar to moron, it kind of really reassured me that I am not a moron. Also, the genius extraordinaire? No, she's not. What Cain does with weapons, Morena does with computers. When? When does she do that? I'm very curious. I read this book. I don't think she really does that much with computers, okay? So, on to what the book is, mostly about. So the book starts off with us finding out that Morena was dared by her boyfriend, at the time we're reading, her ex-boyfriend, by her boyfriend to create some master codes. What do these codes do, you might ask? Great question. I would love to know. I don't know if you noticed, this is book 1 in the series. So if you do end up reading this book and you read the rest of the series, I have no idea how many are in this series, but if you read the rest and you find out what the codes really do, that'd be great. The only thing we know about the codes is that Morena was dared to make them by her boyfriend, and she made them. She made these codes, and the codes have the power to destroy governments and destroy mob bosses and just basically destroy anything. How? I don't know how codes work. Doesn't really sound... I mean, maybe. What do I know? I just said I don't know anything about codes. So I guess maybe it's a thing that could happen. But being a certified genius that she is, when she was making these codes, she failed to create a fail-safe for them. She actually, in the beginning of the book, when we first meet her, she says that she hadn't put in the failsafe yet when her boyfriend, now ex, stole the codes. I feel like if you are making something that can destroy the world, you would probably want to, at the same time, make something that could destroy the thing that destroys the world, potentially. I don't know. I'm not a genius, clearly, but she is certified. So, I guess she knows what she's doing. Oh, except she doesn't. She knows that she's an idiot, but she also, doubles down on being a supposed genius. So, that's how we meet her. 20-year mystery that it mentioned in the back on the synopsis is directly related to little girls being kidnapped. Do we get any kind of closure for this mystery? No, we do not. There are a lot of things that we don't get closure for. So the codes that I, was mentioning, how the book starts with the girls being kidnapped, the codes, there's this war that these two different mob families are potentially going to be on. There's this mysterious person who is better at computers than Morena. If you can believe it, I know, the genius that she is. And we don't know any of that by the end of the book. The only thing that really gets kind of resolved is that by the end of the book, Tristan Kane and Morena Vitalio are in this weird alliance. They get in some weird sort of alliance. And the reason I say that it's like a weird alliance is because their relationship is just very weird throughout the whole thing, They start off with her trying to kill him and greatly overestimating her abilities and greatly underestimating his abilities. She doesn't kill him. In fact, he basically says, your life is mine, I'm gonna be the one to kill you. When the time comes for you to die, it's gonna be me. So you don't get to die any other way other than by my hand. Okay, cool. Then chapter 10 comes along. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between that, of course, that I'm kind of skipping over because it's unimportant. Chapter 10 is the first sex scene that happens. The entire chapter is just them having sex in a public restroom. The restroom of a restaurant that her father happens to be in the restaurant. And she goes into the bathroom, and of course, Tristan follows her into the bathroom, and then he's like, you need to make a decision. She locked it. Decision made. That's all you need to know. I've been reading it, regretfully. Not regretfully, but, maybe a little regretfully. So, their alliance is kind of weird. There is a romantic kiss scene at the end of this book, the very last chapter of this book, right, when they make their weird alliance that they have. The reason it's supposed to be romantic, right? Because these characters have never kissed. Oh, they've had sex, but they've never kissed. So it's supposed to be super romantic, and it's even raining. Oh, my goodness, the cliche, right? Except only their lips are touching. And their tongues, I guess. But, they're not hugging each other. They're not even, touching each other. So it's like this. These are their bodies. This is their faces. That's all that's touching. Nothing else is touching. They're spread away from each other, but it's supposed to be a romantic moment. I greatly disagree. It is not romantic. It is really weird. I didn't like it. Another thing that this author really likes to do, they like to repeat things. Oh, there's one. Okay, so this is what I mean by the author liked to repeat things. He kissed her, softly, simply, expertly. He kissed her, until her knees turned to jelly and heat invaded her belly. Points for rhyming. He kissed her, without his tongue, without his hands, without his body. Oh, that's so romantic. So, he kissed her, I think. I think that's what happened. I think that's what the author was saying there, right? It's unclear, really. But there's a lot of that. There's a lot of where it's just a phrase or the beginning of a sentence that keeps getting repeated. And 3 times. This author really likes to repeat themselves in groups of 3. And here's the thing. Repetition in anything, specifically in writing, repetition is a really good way to emphasize something. But there is a limit. There's a point that you get to when your repetition is too much. And this author got there maybe the first couple of chapters, to be honest. So Yeah, they like to repeat a lot. They repeat a lot in threes. They mention his eyes, her heart. Yeah, so I don't know that there's really much else to say about the book. So the thing is, I finished reading the book, and there was never a part or a point where I was reading it and I thought maybe I shouldn't continue reading. Maybe I just stop reading now and just, call it good. So because I finished the book, I feel like it deserves at least 1 star. So that's what I'm going to give it. 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5 stars. I don't necessarily think I would recommend it to anybody, purely because it is a series. This is book 1, and there's no resolution, really. Even them getting together isn't a resolution, because guess what? Them getting together is her saying his first name for the first time, and then immediately a paragraph later being like, I can't use his first name again until he lets me use it. Their kiss, not even touching. Their lips and their tongue touching, but nothing else touching. So them getting together, really unsatisfactory. There's so many things that we don't know by the end of it. To recap, codes, we don't know what they do. We don't know who has them. That mystery computer person who's better than her, we don't know who they are. We don't know why it seems like they are helping her, because they do kind of seem to be helping her throughout it. We don't know what's going on with the mob war, like if it's really happening. We don't know what the deal is with the mystery of all the little girls being kidnapped. By the way, the main character, she was one of those little girls who was kidnapped, but she just so happens to be the only one who gets returned. Pulls a gun and is like, I'm gonna shoot this baby. I'm gonna shoot this baby. And let me say that again, because we like our, things in threes. I'm gonna shoot this baby. Ultimately, all you need to know is that this book is not something that you should read. Unless you really, really want to. If you really, really want to read it, go ahead and read it. I'm not going to stop you. But it's, I read it, so you don't have to, basically. It's 303 pages that I will never be able to unread. So that's my review of The Predator, and I certainly hope that the next book, that one will be better. We're starting the bar real low, to be honest. The bar is low, so it can really only get better from here, right? One can hope. Anyway, thank you for watching. And I guess I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.